Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for our Getting Started with Adobe in Learning and Teaching session. My name is Al Briggs. I am a senior learning designer, graphic designer, and education consultant. I spend the majority of my time showing university staff and students how to go in and make the most out of Adobe Creative Cloud applications. I've worked in tertiary education for nearly 20 years, which makes me significantly older than I look. I understand that, and that's okay. Thank you, as I said, once again for joining me. What I would like to do is start off by doing an acknowledgement of country. So I would like to acknowledge the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands I work and live with my family. I respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders past, present and emerging. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands, waters and cultures across Australia, wherever participants of this workshop today may be located. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So thank you again for joining. We've got a bit of stuff to get through today. What I am hoping is that this works as a make-along session. There is a chat feature in here, so please feel free, if you've got questions along the way, to go in and ask them. We will endeavour to answer as many as we can along that journey. What I've got here is a shared resource that I'd love to go in and share with you guys. And the way that I'd like to do that is to sort of go through the process that I go when I'm running workshops with students. So this is a sort of a simulated experience of what you can do with students or what you can do with educators as a way of going in and getting them thinking about ways to use this tool. So what I'm going to do is pull up a QR code to put onto the middle of my screen. So if you want to grab your mobile phones out and scan that code in, just a little tip, this is something, like I said, I do at the start of all of my sessions that I run with students and teachers. What it does is it gets that resource directly onto the mobile phone. I like to go in and say that I like getting students to go in and use their mobile phones for education and not TikTok, or good and not evil. And this is a fantastic way to get those resources in the hands of the students at the time that you need them. So if you're going to be going in and working on a computer, rather than having to jump from browser window to browser window, if you're inside your learning management system and you're going through a tutorial type idea, getting them to actually go in and use their mobile phone as a secondary education resource, I find is a really, really useful thing. So grab that, grab the QR code. That will just link you directly to the page that we are going to be working through today. Now, that has got all of the resources that you'll need for today. It breaks down what we're doing. To give you a very, very brief rundown as to what we're going to be going through, I'm going to be going in and showing you all how to use Adobe Express in education, primarily focused around that tertiary education space. We're going to take a look at creating a web page in Express. And as I said, I'd really like this to be a make-along session. So if you could all go in and create this with me, I will step you through that process. It takes around about 30 minutes to go in and do this properly, to go in and learn all of the bits and pieces that you need to know along the way, because we're also going to be talking about the whys of why you might want to be going in and using these tools in education practice. That will push the session to around about 45 minutes, which should give us plenty of time for questions at the end if people do have questions. But as I said, I really encourage a robust learning environment. So if you've got questions along the way, please feel free to chuck them into the chat and we will endeavour to answer them as best we can. So the session's sort of broken up into the three main sections, which is the why, the what and the how. We will be in Express for the entire session. We're going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to go in and show you how to go in and remove a background from an image. And then we're going to be taking a look primarily at functionality directly inside of Express. Towards the end of the session, we're going to take a little bit of a look at beta, which is all of the new bits and pieces that are coming up inside of Express that are going to be launched imminently, probably just at the point that you get your head around Adobe Express. All of the new stuff from beta will be jumping in there as well. And there's some really fantastic stuff in there focused on generative AI that we'll be able to take a look at as well. So if you do have questions, like I said, please feel free to reach out during the session. But let's get started with Adobe in learning and teaching practice. So as I scroll through, well, the Adobe Creative Cloud, what is it? It's a collection of software applications and resources that can be used for any project that would benefit from a creative approach. This page itself was created as an Adobe Express web page, and I use Adobe Express almost exclusively for all of my presentation work and all of my support learning material that I create and share with teachers and students across Australia. As I scroll through, we've got an example of a table, and hopefully this is coming up on your screen as a fairly sort of clear type situation, hopefully. Keeping in mind you've got that as a resource, so you can click into that at any stage if you need a little bit more detail in there. We're focusing on this first section, which is really looking at digital presentation and social media. So, as I said before, my background in education is graphic design. I really, really encourage you to not think of these tools as just being designed for theoretically creative or graphic design based applications. Every student is creative. Every teacher is creative. The whole point of this is making these tools available to everyone means that everybody can express that creativity in their own way. My focus is very much around digital literacy and digital fluency within students and within staff. We have a cohort coming through now into the higher education space that are considered to be digital natives. And digital natives doesn't necessarily mean that they are incredibly competent using digital tools. It means that they are very familiar with some tools in some circumstances. So fantastic at going in and using a mobile phone with social media tools. That is part and parcel of what it is to be a young person these days in terms of communicating with friends and family and the wider world. What we're trying to do is try and harness some of that and pushing it more into an education stream by going in and focusing on getting them to produce content in an interface that they're already familiar with for non-education purposes, but for education. So engaging students at the start of their journey is one of the really key elements. I'm literally about to, at the end of this session, run off and run a workshop for some students who are commencing in semester 2 in an interior design decoration program. And we're going to be going in and showcasing essentially the same stuff that we're going to be running through over the next half an hour. The tools that we're going to be focusing on today, as we said, are really what Adobe calls their low lift, high impact tools. So the ones that have got all of the wiring hidden under the board, the ones that make it a lot easier to go in and use at that starting point. The learning curve is just today's session. By the end of today's session, you will all be published web designers. Not necessarily amazingly published web designers, but you will have the ability to go in and put information in to share it with friends, colleagues, students in a really simple way that is visually appealing, that can travel with you and can be edited and accessed anywhere that you happen to be able to log in. We're focusing very much on this idea of accessibility. So because the tool that we're looking at today, which is Adobe Express, is browser-based, it means you don't need a $3,000 computer and an amazing monitor to be able to go in and create. All you need is internet access. There are companion mobile applications. So you can, if you have an Android or an iPhone, you can go in and you can actually create some of this content or most of this content directly onto your mobile phone. And again, that pushes into that space of accessibility for students. Really, I think the main thing to be getting your head around with all of this is it is very, very simple to create engaging, high quality content and assets for both teachers and students alike. The key element with all of this is getting the students doing this stuff right at the start of the student journey. So in orientation week or in week 1, and then again, reiterating that contact and those points of contact with students along the way, so that it's not just an activity that they do in week 1, forget about by the time they get to week 8 or 9. So if you start creating something right at the very start of the student journey, and then when it comes to doing your assessments, start thinking about using Express for things like process documentation or reflective pieces, for digital portfolios, for any sort of presentation work. And that's really what we're going to be looking at today. As I said, this resource you have access to, it's in the chat already. You've got access to this whenever you need a sort of a refresher or a reminder. There are some additional details going in and showing what we'll be going through in class today. But this is essentially what we're going to be going in and doing, which is an introductory website. Here's one I prepared earlier, which is just about me. We're going to take a look at how to go in and use some of the functionality inside of Express web page to create things like split layouts or glide shows, which are fantastic if you're going in and doing a presentation. And we're then going to go in and look at how to go in and create buttons, export that out, share it with your students or your fellow colleagues, share it so that you can have multiple people going in and editing the file if you've got group work, for example. Again, it's all about showing you the ease. So let's get started and let's open up Express. So if you go to express.adobe.com, hopefully you've got an institution login and you've already in your introduction or your invitation to this particular session, you've got access to this. What you'll notice when you open up Express for the first time is you've got this screen. It may look slightly different for you. By default, you may be inside of the beta. You'll notice at the top of my screen, it says open Adobe Express Beta. We will be opening Adobe Express Beta a little bit later on in the session, but for now, we're just going to keep it as is. You'll notice on the top left-hand corner, you've got this big pink and purple circle with a plus in it. That is just going in and telling you that's where you go in and create. Express, I think of as sort of like Adobe's Swiss Army knife, where you can go in and do a whole bunch of quick actions, like you'll see at the bottom of the screen there. You can remove backgrounds, you can resize images, you can convert files, you can go in and trim video, you can go in and create QR codes, the QR code that I shared before. Very easy to go in and create, and we'll go through that process at the end. You can go in and you can break and make PDFs and do all sorts of things in there. There are thousands and thousands of templates, and when we check out beta, you'll see there are even more on the way. You can go in and create your own brand. So if you need to make your work look in a particular sort of way, you can go in and you can create your own brand rather than going with a pre-existing theme. You can share libraries. So if you've got any Adobe libraries, if you've got some Adobe knowledge, you may already be going in and using some of that shared library functionality across your projects or across your colleges. But what we're basically going to be doing is we're going to create a web page. Before we do that, I'm going to go in and show you how easy it is to go in and remove a background. Now, as I said, my background is in education and I'm a graphic designer. One of the things that I taught for 17 years was complex selections, going in and showing students how to go in and make complex selections like removing backgrounds from people with their headshots. One of the trickiest things in the world to go in and do that with is hair, because hair is not necessarily a very straightforward, solid piece of material. It's why photographers love bald people, because it's really easy to go in and contour a bald head. When you've got hair, when you've got flyaways and things like that, it can get a little bit tricky to go in and do that process. So I'm going to go in and show you now how easy that is. Now, this is a job that to do really effectively and competently used to take around about 20, 30 minutes. And that's for a really competent designer. It's now something that you can do literally with the click of a button. So if you click on remove background, you can either browse on your device or you can drag and drop an image in there. If I click on browse on my device, I'm just going to go in and grab a headshot. And this is one that I took. You can see today at 11:52 a.m. So it's not one that I've prepared earlier. It's not any tricky thing. It's literally a photo of me. You can see that leaning against my front door. General rule of thumb when you're going in and doing this sort of work, you want to go in and have some sort of contrast between your head and your background. Now, that took, probably about 10, 11 seconds to go in and do. And you'll see I've now actually got that image there where it's removed the background, and I can see I've got the checkered pattern. I could go in and customize that further and actually create that as an asset inside of Express. But I'm just for now going to go in and click on download. And I'm just going to go in and download that as an asset. And you'll see I'll get this little spinny wheel that goes in and says downloading. It's actually going to open this up as a project inside of Express while I'm going in and doing that. And that's absolutely fine. You'll see it saved it out as my project 1. I'm going to go out because I don't want to go in and continue editing, but I could go in and edit that. I could adjust the cutout so that removed background. I could change background colors. I could go in and, if I wanted to make myself bigger, I could go in and make myself a bigger image just by clicking and dragging onside that image. I might want to go in and make myself black and white. You'll notice here that with that brown background, it's not necessarily working particularly well. So I can click on that. I'll get any of my edit stuff popping up on the right-hand side of my screen. I can go in and change that color. So if I've got a theme or a color palette that I want to work with, I can go in and change that. I could also just go in and use my little gradient slider or my color slider here to change color. I could go in and now select that image. And if I wanted to, for example, instead of being grayscale, I'll go in and make myself a duotone. I can go in and click on this little blending mode here, change it from normal to multiply. And that just blends it into the background. You might not want to do that. You might want to keep it full color. All of this is completely editable. You can turn those effects on and off at will, at leisure. You'll notice as I'm going in and working in this space, and this is the real beauty, I think, of Express, I don't ever have to save my work. Because it's online, because it's inside of the Adobe Express environment, it is constantly saving. So long as you've got an internet connection, you are never going to go in and lose any of your work. You can always go in and re-edit. You can always go in and re-access any of the stuff that you need. You can go in and change it whenever you want, however that works. I can go in and I can enhance my image. So if I decide that I don't like the color that much, or I want to increase the brightness, I can go in and I can play around with those features with these little sliders. So again, at any stage, you'll notice inside of this, and this is going to be exactly the same when we're going in and doing the web page as well, we've got our editing ability sitting over there on the right-hand side, and over on the left is where we can go in and add all our bits and pieces in. I'm going to just click on the little A icon in the top left-hand corner to take me back to my home page. You'll notice when I do that, any of my recent projects pop up at the bottom there. I can also go in and access them through projects, through my projects folder. And in there, you can see I can create folders. I can go in and do all sorts of bits and pieces as far as organizing files. Any of the projects that I complete, I can go in and I can track how many people have looked at them. I can go in and I can see how many assets I've created. I can see whether it's a web page or whether it's a document, whether it's a poster, whether it's a media post, whatever I need. So let's get started. We've got that headshot now. That's just saved it directly into our downloads folder. I'm going to click on this little plus in the top left-hand corner. Here are all of the different projects that I can create, and here are all of the quick actions over on this side. So we're going to just scroll down to about 2/3 of the way from the bottom where it says web page. And what we're going to get to is something which is called a WYSIWYG, which is a what you see is what you get. What that means is that anything that you see on screen is essentially going to be the same when you go in and publish that out. It's asking us for 3 pieces of information. It's asking us for a title, it's asking us for a subtitle, and it's asking us for something to put in the background. So we're going to go in and do a title, a subtitle, and a background. And what I'd like you to do for this session is go in and do this as an introductory page to yourself. So if you're thinking about this with your educator hat on, or you're thinking about this with your student hat on, again, this is an activity that you introduce right at the start of the student journey, saying, hey, here's a new tool that you can go in and use that your university has given you access to that will allow you to go in and create all sorts of amazing presentation-based content. Anything where you need to combine text and image together, this is a fantastic, simple tool. All you need is browser access. It means you can jump into any location in the world with your education login. You could go in, you can add, you can share that resource with anybody that you need to, and you don't need to have specific software to be able to go in and start working inside of that space. So what we'll be doing is setting up essentially the start that a student could be using for a digital portfolio, or as an icebreaker activity at the start of the year or the semester, introducing themselves to their fellow students, getting them to submit that through the learning management system or through a discussion board as a way of going and sharing a little bit about themselves is a great great thing to do. For educators, it might be a way of going in and doing that little bit of an online introduction to your student cohort. Hi, my name is Al. I've been at I've been at my university, or I've been teaching my material for X years. I like dogs. I support the Carlton Football Club. Whatever it is that is going to be a little bit of an icebreaker. So I'm just going to go in and type in my name. And then under the subtitle, I'm just going to click in that little subtitle heading, and I'm going to type in, if I can spell, learning designer and educator. Again, clearly can't spell, but that's only because this is on YouTube. Normally my spelling is... Okay, I've got my two pieces of information in there. I've got my title, I've got my subtitle. Inside of Express, anywhere you see a circle with a little plus in it, that is indicating it's a spot at which you can add content. So we know from when we first opened that document that we had that little option popping up at the bottom saying, hey, do you want to go in and put in a photo? So clicking on that little plus, we'll go in and bring that option up again. We've got an option for photo, for a short cover or a split layout. Short cover just means that it's going to have a little banner header rather than a full page one. Split layout is going to be half image, half text. But for now, all we're going to be doing is going in and adding in a photo. And when you click on that photo option, you'll see you've got immediate access, not just to your own photo library through photo here, or clicking on your triple dots through Lightroom, any Creative Cloud, Dropbox, Google Drive, Google Photos, or actually taking a photo using your webcam. But you'll see here, you've also got access to literally hundreds of millions of resources through Adobe Stock. Now, Adobe Stock, high-end, amazing quality assets that you can access and you can use in your projects. So I'm going to go in and click in here. Like I said, my background is graphic design. So I'm going to go in and type in graphic design. And you'll see when I click that in my search field, I get a list of 1,710,393 different results. I'm not going to spend hours going through this because it would literally take me hours to go in and go through all of those assets. You'll see some of the assets have got a little crown on it. Some of them don't. I'm going to go in and select this one. This one's a fantastic one, I think, because it's got some color. It's got the computer on there. It doesn't look like my desktop, but it looks like what I wish my desktop did look like. So I'm going to click on that. And as I do that, you'll see it's going to go in and take a couple of seconds to load. And once that is in there, you'll see I've now got this text at the bottom of the screen that says, scroll to start writing your story. Now, one thing just before we go in and scroll to start writing the story, right at the top of this session, I went in and showed you guys how to go in and get the QR code. So hopefully you've got that asset that we looked at on your mobile phone. These things look brilliant on mobile. The thing to remember, though, is that if you've got a background image like this, by default, it's going to go in and just pull the center of the image when it's going in and making it portrait mode on your mobile phone. So if you want to go in and change that, if you find, for example, that there's a particular area of this image that you think looks really good, or you just want to check to see what it looks like on mobile phone, you can click anywhere on this image inside of your screen here. And you'll notice I can, while also being able to go in and delete or replace that image with another, I can also go in and change the focal point. And when I click on focal point, you'll see in the top right-hand corner, a little screen opens up and shows me what it's going to look like in portrait mode, which is what it's going to look like on mobile phone. I might decide looking at this image that that's fine. I'm happy to go in and have it centered on the hand. But from my own design taste perspective, I'd like to go in and highlight this little color wheel because I think it's the most interesting aspect on that page. So you'll notice in the middle of the screen, I've got this little circle. It says drag to choose focal point. And if I click and drag that, if you take a look up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see it's actually going in and moving that location. Now, it's not changing the way that it looks on my desktop, but it is changing what it's going to look like on my mobile. And that's it's just a nice little tip if you want to go in and maximize the way that that graphic is going to look like if you're wanting to engage with your audience on a mobile platform. Once you've gone in and changed that focal point, click in the top right-hand corner on Save. And again, you'll notice we're back to our screen. We've got our three main elements. We've got our name, we've got our subtitle, we've got our background image. At this stage, I could go and share that up at the top and actually publish that out, and that's a created web page. It's not a very good created web page. There's no content in there. There's nothing interesting in there other than a stock image and my name. So we're going to go in and follow the instructions that it says on screen, which is scroll to start writing your story. You can see that down at the bottom. And as I do that, you'll notice, again, we've got a little plus with a circle. That's a spot where we can add content. If I keep scrolling down, you'll see I get a little contextual menu that pops up. And that's the 7 options that you can go in and use. Now, wherever you see a little plus inside of that circle is, as we've said before, a spot where you can add content. It will be dependent on where you are inside of your document in terms of what content you can add. Inside of the main body of the document, you can add any of these 7 things, which are photo, text, button, video, photo grid, glide show, or split layout. We'll take a look at the functionality of each of these. And we're going to go in and start by going in and creating a glide show. So to click on a glide show, I'll just literally select that. And you'll see inside of that screen, again, I go into my glide show option. Apologize, my dog's just decided to start barking. It's very exciting, I know, buddy. It's okay. So again, we've got that option to go in and pull things directly out of stock. It's pulling up our previous search. And it says on screen, add a few background photos to your glide show. Glide shows are fantastic if you're wanting to go in and have an alternative to something like, say, PowerPoint for your presentations. So you basically go in and set up a glide show, which is a full page image with a text box that sits on top of it. So you can go in and set that up essentially in the same way that you would set up multiple slides inside of a presentation. For this, I'm just going to go in and select another image. So we'll grab this image as an example. Now I can go in and I could select multiple images if I want to. And essentially then I would have separate frames for each of those pieces. So if I click on another image, you'll see I've now got multiple there. I can delete them at any stage. I can move them forward or backward, clicking on those arrows. I can replace them. So I'm going to go in and just get rid of this first one because I actually think that second one's a little bit nicer. When I'm ready with either the 1 or 10 or however many images I want in that glide show, sorry, I can click on save in the top right-hand corner. And when I click on that save, you'll see now I've got a full page image. I've got this semi-transparent text box that sits on top of it. And again, I've got a little plus there that I can go in and add content into. So this is where we're going to go in and use that photo that we removed the background from before. So I'm going to go in, and when I click on that plus, you'll see inside of a glide show, I don't have full access to all of the options that I had when I was inside the main body of the document. I can't go in and put in a photo grid. I can't go in and put a glide show inside of a glide show. I can't go sort of all Inception styles and get this infinitely regressing presentation style. It's very, very simple. But I can go in and put in a photo. I can put in text. I can embed a video, and I can go in and create a button. So either linking out to an external resource or to a mail export. So if you want to go in and set up a contact point so people can contact you automatically via email. So I'm going to click on photo. This time we're not going to be going in and grabbing something directly from stock. I'm going to go in and upload my own photo. And so because I know that I saved my image into my downloads folder, I'll say here's the image right here. It's the one that we went through and created about 15 minutes ago. I'm going to click on open, and you'll notice my ugly mug pops up inside of that page. Now, you can't go in and resize these images inside of Express. What it will do is fill out that text frame. So if you want it to be smaller, that's where you could go in inside of Express and actually just create that smaller inside of your actual graphic frame, have a bigger blank graphic frame, and it'll go in and shrink that down a little bit in size. You'll notice inside of that text frame now, I've got a little plus above and below. So at any stage, whenever you're going in and creating work inside of Express, it always gives you the ability to input information anywhere else along that document journey. So at the top, I'm just going to go in and click on text. And when I click on text, you'll see I've got a rich text editor interface that pops up. I've got options of a main heading, a subheading. I can do a pull quote. I can do a bulleted or numbered list. I can make my text bold, italic, or hyperlinked, and I can change my alignment. So I can have it left aligned, centered, or right aligned. I'm just going to go in and go with a main heading here, and I'm going to call it About Me. You may find when you're going in and looking at this that yours looks a little different. You don't have that particular typeface. And that's because by default, inside of Express, your theme will not be a created theme or a created brand like I've got here. Yours will be crisp by default. And these are all of the themes that are included inside of Adobe Express. So you've got different themes for different outcomes. Crisp is the default, and crisp is just a super, super clean one. It's all nice, clean sans serif typeface, white backgrounds. Everything's very, very crisp and clean. You've got whimsy, you've got storybook if you want to go that sort of Etsy DIY kind of vibe. There's Trek and Nightcap if you want to go in and have things all sort of reversed out where you've got dark backgrounds and light text. Nightcap can work quite well. Play around with these. Feel free to go in and use whichever one you feel works best for your project. I think crisp is a good starting point because it is very vanilla, it is very clean, and it does mean that you're focusing very much on the material itself rather than the way that it's sort of being displayed. I've gone in and created my own brand. So if I wanted to go in and apply that brand, I can literally click on the brand element, and you'll see when I go into this window here and I click on light, I can go in and change those settings. So I've gone in and established this because this is how I like my projects to work. But again, this is something that you can encourage your students as they go through their student journey and they become more confident with these tools. They may want to go in and create their own assets or create their own artifacts or styling to all of the work that they're producing. The great thing about a brand too is it doesn't actually change any of the content. It just changes the appearance. So it means you can update that, refresh and change your work without actually having to go in and redo anything. All you need to do is republish it. So I've got the About Me in there. I've got my headshot. I'm now going to go in and have a little bit of text. Now I could go in and I could type this in directly, but I'm also just going to go in and copy and paste in a section that I've got. So this is a case of here's one I prepared earlier. So when I click in on this little plus, this time I'm going to go in and add in some text. And I'm just going to paste the text in. And what you'll notice is I'm bringing in 4 paragraphs. And when I bring those 4 paragraphs in, I've got little pluses in between each of those paragraphs. So again, I can go in and I can add additional content wherever I want. This is not a word processor. So if you've got a lot of text that you want to bring in, one tip I would give is going in and using an alternative piece of software to go in and put that stuff together. So I'm a Mac user. I use TextEdit as my go-to when I'm going in and just writing my regular text. I then copy and paste it in when it's done inside of this document. If you're doing a process journal or something like that, where you may have some research or some steps, again, you might be using Word and you can then go in and copy and paste that content in. Or if you're an educator and you're looking at going in and using Express as an alternative to PowerPoint, you can just copy and paste directly from your slides inside of PowerPoint, chuck that text directly inside of Express, and you're good to go. So I've got my little introduction in here. Hi, my name is Al. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a senior learning designer, graphic designer, and education consultant, etc., etc. That's my basic introductory piece. Now, if I wanted to go in and set up something like a mail to, so I want to go in and have this as a way that people can go in and contact me, I can go in and click on this little plus. And again, if I go in and create a button here, when you pop on the button option, you've got 2 text fields you need to fill in. One is going to say what the button is going to say, and the other is what you want the button to do. So if I wanted to go in and say, contact me, I'm an educator, so I might go in and say Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And then inside of that field, if I were going in and sharing that to an external resource or to an external website, I would literally just put the HTTP address in there. So the www.albriggs.com, which is not my website, so don't go to it. I think it's an American photographer or American someone or other, but it's not my site. It's not affiliated with me. I'm not doing this as a plug for them. If you want to go in and set it up as a mail, so you want to go in and have it so that it mails directly to, you need to type in mail to, all as one word, with a colon. So mail to, MAILTO : and then just put in the email address. So if I put in mine, which is open.counter@outlook.com, when I click on that and click on save, you'll see that now has created it as a button. And when I go in and publish this, anybody who clicks on that link, it will automatically open up in their mail application with me as the addressee. And you can then go in and use that as a way of getting students to go in and contact you, or colleagues, or whomever it is. You can go in and link out to external sources. So if you've got published resources that you want to go in and share with students, or if you've got a LinkedIn profile, you want to go in and use this as a sort of a digital profile, you can go in and obviously add those links in as well. You can link it obviously to other projects or anywhere that you want people to go. Now, as I said, inside of here, I've got this glide show. If I wanted to go in and create this same sort of layout, but in a slightly different way, I could also go in and create, say, a split layout. So I'm just going to go in and do that same thing. I'm going to go in and select this little circle with a plus. This time I'm going to go in and do a split layout. Now, if I go in and select add my image, again, I get my navigation window popping up on the right. If I click on upload photo, it'll take me just directly to my previous version or my previous location. I can go in and grab that image. And if I grab that image, I can click on that. Now, I find that a little bit intimidating because it's a very big photo of me. So in this particular case, I'm going to go in and use a different image. Over on the right here, where I've got my other image side, again, I can add in a photo, I can add in text, I can add in a button, I can add in a video. So I'm just going to go in and recreate exactly the same thing that I had below. I'm going to go in and put in a heading. I'm going to say about me, add in a photo underneath there. This time I'll go in and pull that photo of me directly. And again, I'm just going to go in and paste that text in that I had in before. And you'll see I've now got the same information presented in two different ways. So this way, it's sitting as a split layout where I've got image and text sitting side by side. This way, I've got my glide show. And so the advantage of going in and doing it like this is that you may decide that that's going to work better for you. I like to go in and have things nice and clean. So I tend to go in and go with split layouts a lot. But again, if you're using this as an education tool and you're looking at this as a presentation tool, I think the glide show really does work particularly well. You'll notice at the top of the screen, we've got these four options at the top. So we've got a settings, we've got a preview, a present, and a share. If I go to preview at any stage, this is going to go in and show me what this website is going to look like when it's published. So if I click on preview, you'll see I get this little loading screen. It's going to go in and show me. And all that you can see the difference there is that all of those little pluses in the circles, they've all disappeared. So everything sort of collapses down a little bit. And as I scroll through, you can see what it's going to look like as a website. So as I scroll through, yep. And you can see here, because I've got a little bit more text than the image size, it actually scrolls through that page while keeping that image static. As I get to my glide show, the glide show image sits in the background. So it almost makes it look like you've got that text box sort of sitting on top of it. And you've got this sort of dimensionality to your design. As I scroll through, again, I get this about me section popping up and I get my window browser. Here we go. You'll notice you get that slight panning in on the image in the background, which is called the Ken Burns effect. And the Ken Burns effect is, he was a documentary photographer who took photos of the Vietnam War. And basically, as a way of going in and increasing a little bit of interest to these static image shows, went in and just sort of panned in on them. So you get this idea that it's actually a little bit of moving material. You'll see, obviously, as I'm scrolling through, it's panning in again. And as I get to the bottom of it, right at the very bottom, I get this little credit section popping up. And that's the other fantastic thing about Express, is when you go in and you use assets directly from Adobe stock, anything that you've used from Adobe stock is automatically credited at the bottom. It's not in Harvard referencing or Chicago referencing style or anything like that, but it does go in and showcase where those images were originally sourced, which is a fantastic process for a student, so that they're not just going in and grabbing bits and pieces from everywhere and forgetting where they went in and sourced it. It hasn't included the information about my headshot, because my headshot is not part of the Adobe stock library yet. Fingers crossed. Come on, Adobe, help me out. Fantastic headshot. You can go in and edit that text field. You can go in and do whatever you want, whenever you want with that. So if you need to go in and formalize that, you can certainly go in and do that. Top right-hand corner, you'll see there's a little X, or I can hit my escape board on my keyboard to go back into my regular window and out of my preview mode. And by the same token as going into preview, you can go into present mode. And present mode is a wonderful, wonderful component of this, because it means that if you are going in and presenting work at a conference or to your students, or if your students are getting up and doing a presentation in class, they don't need to have specific software to go in and do this other than a web browser. When you click on the present mode, it takes you full screen, and you can then go in and use these little navigation arrows that pop up at the bottom to go up and down, or you can use the left and right arrows on your keyboard and just click through. So as I click through, see about me, it pulls to the next section of text. If I'm doing my glide show, again to the about me, and then through again to the bottom. Again, I can either hit escape to get out of that, or click on my X. I'm now back inside of my screen. I've checked it. I've gone in and previewed it. Looks pretty good. I've gone in and presented it to go in and see how that's going to flow through. I can now go in and click on share. Now, when I go and click on share, I get 4 options. I can publish and share the link. I can go through the print menu. I can send it to Google Drive, and I can invite someone else. At the moment, if you're going in and creating an object inside of Express, you can go in and you can invite other people to go in and work on it, but you can only have one person in the document at a time. We're about to take a look at Adobe Express Beta, and inside of that, you can actually have multiple collaborators at a time in a project. What that means is that if you're getting students to go in and do group work, they can go in and have that as an online collaborative tool, whether it be brainstorming or doing mood boards or going in and setting up project timelines or project frameworks. They can do that really, really easily in an online space through a web browser, which I think is a brilliant thing. But let's go in and take a look at this publishing. Publishing and sharing the link, when I click on that, I'll get a publishing screen. It's pulling in whatever we put in as the title. All that's going to do is change what your browser tab displays. So you could make that as Al Briggs, you could make that as introduction, digital CV, call it whatever you want. You've got categories where you can go in and choose a particular category. So you might want to go in and put it down as education or whatever you want. You don't have to go in and choose a category, but you may find it useful. By default, the author details are turned off. To turn them on, you just click on the little slider. In this case, it's just me, so it's got the first name and last name. That's pulled directly from my login Adobe account. I can go in and change that. That's editable text field, so I can call it whatever I want. If it's a group project, I might go in and change that to authors and go in and have multiple people in there. The photo credits, again, you can see all of that detail is in there. If I wanted to go in and include the image that I shot as well, which was that headshot, I can just click into that text field and type in something like all other images, copyright the author. When I'm ready to go, I just want to click on that blue button that says create link. And when I click on create link, it's going to go in and pop up with a screen with a little blue navigation bar that says creating your link. It's got a couple of design tips or inspirational design quotes that might pop up as we're going. It's not going to take a super long time. And that's my link, shareable link. So https express.adobe.com/page, and then an alphanumeric sequence. You'll see I've got a bunch of links there, so I can go in and publish that directly out to Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or to Google Classroom or to Microsoft Teams. I can email it out to my colleagues or my students, or I can grab some embed code if I wanted to go in and embed this resource or this as something that I want to go in and put inside of my learning management system, or something I want to go in and share inside of another design resource or education resource. When I copy out that link, I can now go in, and if I grab my web browser, I can paste that link in, and that's now a published web page. Now, it's not going to be something that if you go in and do a Google search for Al Briggs, this web page is going to pop up with, but it is a published link. So it means that anybody who has that actual link can go in and access that project. It means that all of the elements inside of there are now live. So if I go in and click on that little email link, it's going to go in and open up my email browser to go in and set an email application to go in and create an email out to me. And that's a page. So that's the process of going in and creating an Express page. As I said, it's super, super simple. The fantastic thing about it too is that you can edit that at any stage. If I decide, actually, I don't need to have 2 About Me sections, I don't want to go in and have that split layout, I can click inside of the middle there and click on Delete Layout. It's going to pop up with a sort of confirmation screen. Are you sure you want to get rid of that section? Yep. And you'll see now I've just got my glide show. Now, if I want to go in and share that revised version, if I go into my Chrome browser now and I refresh that window, nothing's going to change, because the last time I published it, it still had that split layout in it. So if I want to go in and update that, I need to actually just jump back inside of Express, go up to my share option, go to my publish and share link, and you'll see I've now got this little screen at the top with a little lightning bolt that says, hey, we noticed you made some changes to the project. Do you want to update the link? It's not going to change the link. That link stays as long as that document is published, but it will update what has been published. So that will get rid of that element that we had from before. So I click on Update Link. It's now going to update that in about 5 seconds or so. And if I now go in and click through my browser window in just a second, if I refresh this browser window now, you'll notice that this whole split layout section has disappeared from the final, and all we're left with is that glide show. So that's how easy it is to go in and update the document. I've got full control of this too. So if I decide I actually don't want to go in and keep that published, I can go into my projects. It'll pop up at the top of my project list. I can go in and I can see that if I go into, go to my home page. So I've got my little document down the bottom there. I can click on the triple dots. I can unpublish that at any stage if I want, or I can go in and share it with another person. I can publish it if it's not. If I want to go in and use that as a sort of a template for other versions, I can go in and just click on duplicate. I can move it into another location, or I can click on Find in Projects and it'll go in and show me exactly where it is inside of my projects window. So I've got lots of options in terms of going in and taking a look at that. There's no questions coming through, so I'm hoping that's pretty clear. The only other thing I'd probably touch on with this is if you do need students or yourself to go in and have another digital asset created, if you're working through the Google Chrome browser, and this is the recommended browser to be going through because it's the one that Adobe tends to do most of its testing and it seems to be the most robust inside of. If you go under the share menu, you can also go down to your print option. And if you then go through your print, you can go directly to your destination and click on Save as PDF, and you can save that out as a digital asset. So if you're getting students to go in and submit this as a digital file, you can actually go in and get them to go in and submit that digital file via that process. You'll see what it does is it pulls all of the design elements out onto separate pages. So it's not going to look as effective or as beautiful as the actual web page itself. But if you need that for evidence of submission, it's a really fantastic, easy way to go in and do it. It is a PDF, so it means that if you need to go in and run that through something like Turnitin, it will go in and recognize all of that language. So you can still go in and do the Turnitin process through that. So to save that out, it's just like I said, destination, go to save as PDF rather than through the printer, and then just click on save. Okay, now we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to very quickly go in and show you some of the fun and new stuff that's happening in Adobe Express Beta. This is going to be incorporated into Express very, very shortly. I've been told sometime in the next month or so, so keep an eye out for that. When you click at the top of your Express window to open Adobe Express Beta, you'll see it does redirect you to a new screen that says new.express.adobe.com. Pretty much the same interface. You've still got a plus at the top left-hand corner. It's not pink and purple gradient anymore. It's just blue, but that's okay. What you'll notice in here is you've got a slightly different navigation system where you've got your social media, video, photo, document, marketing, and the fun bit that everybody's talking about at the moment, which is the generative AI. Generative AI is amazing. I think there's a bit of a scare campaign potentially going around with artificial intelligence in education space as we move forward. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to go in and harness some of this stuff to support your work, not to go in and dominate it. I'm not saying go in and use ChatGPT to write an essay. What I'm saying is if you're concerned about ChatGPT being used to have students write essays, get them to go in and create a presentation or use Adobe Audition and make a podcast, or use Adobe Rush or Premiere Pro to go in and create a video. There are so many different ways that you can get students to go in and create interesting, authentic assessments and submissions that are going to be so much more useful to them when they're moving out into industry. They're going to be more interesting for you to be going in and assessing, and they're going to circumvent some of those issues that you're going to find from things like ChatGPT that are sort of popping up. To go in and take a look at where you can go in and use generative AI in interesting ways, there are two main things, and this came out of a project called Adobe Firefly. There are two fantastic things that are integrated at the moment. One is text to image, the other is text effects. So if I went in and said, now my dog is a small cavoodle, if I type in cavoodle, swimming with dolphins, don't know if that's going to do anything good. We'll see. What this does is it harnesses all of these images and database that are built inside of the Adobe systems. So it's not going in and using existing material by artists. It's going in and it's creating content based on images directly from Adobe stock. Again, because it's in beta, because it's generative AI, it's machine learning, it means it's getting better all the time. Some of them are really good. Some of them are better than others. I mean, this has kind of turned the dog into a half dog, half dolphin. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm sure my dog would be very delighted. But you can go in and you can change all sorts of features and all sorts of ideas in there. If you want to go in and just create some abstract background graphics, you might go in and say colourful swirls of smoke. And again, we can go in and very easily, very quickly create these fantastic assets. I can go in and change the way that looks. I can go in and decide what I want to go in and do with that. I might really like that element. You've got the ability to go in and say, yes, it's done a good job. No, it's done a poor job. But if I really like that, I can go in and download it. I can share it. I can add it. I can do all sorts of things with that. So you can use these graphics throughout your projects. If you need to go in and have some ideas, but you've got students or staff themselves who are a bit concerned about how to go in and actually create some of those elements, you can get it done so quickly. And you've got full ownership over that because it's not going in and pulling it from existing material that is copyrighted by designers and authors who aren't wanting you to be going in and sharing it. This is all inside of Adobe's proprietary system. So you can go in and use these freely throughout your projects with no fear of copyright infringement. So again, look, beta, you could play around with all day, and we are not here to be talking about Adobe Express beta. Soon enough, this stuff is all going to be built into Express, in which case the workshop will change its pitch slightly, where we'll go in and take a look at how you could potentially use that generative AI in your background images that are going inside of an Express web page, for example. Again, there's also text effects. So if you wanted to go in and do that sort of colorful smoke swirls, but this time for text, I can go in and do that. I'll click on generate, and you'll see it's actually going to go in and pull out any of the typefaces that I've got included inside of there and actually create that as a text effect, which I think is amazing. Really, really fantastic way to go in and add a little bit of pop. I don't know whether the legibility is brilliant there, maybe not go in and make it out of smoke, but you can see there are all sorts of existing effects that you can go in and take a look at. So if you wanted to go in and have that sort of balloon feel, some of this is probably not a fantastic education pitch, but they are fun tools to go in and play around with. And if you're struggling for some creative inspiration, it can be a really fantastic starting point. So all of that is available in beta. You can go in and jump into that at any stage. If you're currently working in the beta and you want to go back to the prior version of Adobe Express, you just click at the top of your browser and it will go in and take you out to Express, and you can go in and work inside of that space as well. So there's about 5 minutes left for questions. If there are any questions, please let me know if there's anything that you want or need from me, or if there's anything I didn't cover. Hopefully what you got from that is really the simplicity of it. We took around about 40 minutes to go and create that website. That was with a really detailed step-by-step process. You can do it so easily because everything that you need is on the screen. If you're creating a web page, it's just circles with a little plus in it, add whatever content you want. If you want to go in and change that, you can go in and change it. If you want to go in and change the appearance of it, what you'll notice is that you're not spending hours agonizing over your typeface choices. You're not spending hours agonizing over your color choices or how you want your buttons to work. But if you do want to go in and do that, you can do that inside of your brands. So to go in and create a brand, it's as simple as adding in 3 elements, which is a logo, it's a typeface, and it's a color. If you want to go in and edit an existing one, so here's one I've created earlier, there are my logos, there's my color palette, it's got my typefaces in there, and I can go in and change the way that those elements work. So if I click on edit, I'll get an example Express page, and you can see over here on the right, every single element I can go in and edit, I can access through here, and I can go in and change what it looks like. So if I want to go in and have a rule below it and have it centered, or if I want to go in and change the color of it, so I might want to make them orange, for example, I can do that, and it's going to give me a live example of what that looks like. Same thing for text links, for buttons, for pull quotes. There's all sorts of different formattings that you can go in and use for any of these things. So feel free to go in and customize it. It's like salt in food, yeah? Customize it to your own taste. Make it so that it's going in and working as an example of who you are as a worker, as a designer. There are no questions coming through, which I generally go in and assume means, Al, you've done such a good job here. There's absolutely no questions we can possibly have. So I would like to thank you all very much for your time. Thank you for coming. We're running this session again at 9:45 on Thursday next week. So if you've got colleagues who would like to attend, please feel free to come there. We're also running a session on the 27th of July at 2:45 in the afternoon. So if the afternoon's a better time for you, that's also fantastic. If you do have any questions at all, my contact details are in the shared doc that I sent out. You'll also see at the very bottom of that document, there are links out to all of the Adobe Education team. So if you want to drive engagement with Adobe at your own institution, please reach out to any of those people. They are all just direct email links. Please reach out to them and let them know. There's also a link there to the Adobe Creative Educator program. So if you are interested in going in and doing some more upskilling, essentially what we've covered in this session is what you would get if you do the Adobe Creative Educator Credly Badge Level 1, which is just going in and creating an artifact for learning and teaching in Express. At the very bottom of the page, there's a link out to me. So if you do have any questions about any of this stuff or would like to get in contact to sort of start or continue a discussion process, please feel free to do so. Again, thank you very much for your time. If there's anything at all that me or any of the Adobe team can do, please just let us know. Otherwise, have a fantastic afternoon. Enjoy the end of winter if you're down under. If you're up north, then I guess just enjoy the rest of summer. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.